like, all right, who's he going to fight? And I saw the Weasel talking about this dude who got knocked out by Yuri Prohaska that's in PFL and is pretty good. You know, has 15 knockouts out of 16 wins. And it's like, you know, all right, I am just going to say this. They're thinking way bigger than that, dude. They're thinking way bigger than that. And the hint for where their brain is going, think outside the PFL. Maybe even think outside the sport of mixed martial arts. All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back. So Francis Ngannou deal. Congratulations, Francis. We have a lot to talk about this that you're probably not going to get on other channels. Some of you guys know Markel is back on the team with Francis, advising and putting a lot of things together behind the scenes, and he is likely going to come. We're going to try to get him on the channel tomorrow. I leave for Punta Cana for I'll be gone Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so we're going to try to get him on tomorrow. And then if not, we'll do next week when this story is not even close to as hot. So we're really going to try to do it tomorrow. So we'll see about that because he can tell you a lot more than I'm allowed to say. I have known what this deal was for the last 2 weeks, and there's been a lot of other things that we need to discuss related to the deal itself, the details of the deal, and also some things related to what comes next. And we're going to compare the deal, the details of the deal, to what he was offered at UFC, just so that there's clarity on exactly what that looks like, because that's obviously very important, okay? Why he made the decision that he did and what he was up against at UFC. And then we'll talk about, you know, whether or not this is how big of a gamble this is for PFL, you know, and basically what UFC lost or didn't lose, etc. And then we're going to talk about boxing. A lot of boxing stuff to talk about. This is a long video, so I'm going to go ahead and spare you guys the subscribe ask. Just subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And please, if you don't mind, like this video. I promise it makes a huge difference with the algorithm. Just like it. That's it. 10-second ask. Let's go. Like and sub. Let's go. Okay, so first of all, the details of Francis's deal. Francis hit a grand slam. He got an enormous deal. Now, I imagine that there are going to be a lot of people who are going to say, what on earth is PFL doing? Especially when you consider the deal that they gave him in comparison to any other offer that he had, right? Because this deal is so much better than any other deal that he was offered. It's kind of staggering, all right? So when it comes to what he was offered in the UFC, he was offered, let's say, I don't know the exact numbers, call it 8 to 10 million for the John Jones fight, okay? The deal went down from there, even for other, this is secondhand, but very credible secondhand. The deal goes down from there for any other heavyweight title defense. And in addition to that, if Francis lost, you're talking, he goes down to like, if I'm remembering correctly, something like 450, something like that, like right around $1 million if he wins. So you're talking, I don't know what the percentage is, from 8 million a fight down to 1 million a fight on the high side, but that's enormous, which means it's an enormous risk. In addition to that, he's locked in, right? Like he can't box, he can't do anything. He has literally no flexibility to do anything. He also wants to go to Africa to fight. He has a really deep, passionate thing that he wants to go help develop Africa as an MMA and combat sports haven where they could develop new talent. He can give opportunities to people who live in Africa, grew up in Africa, and felt like they didn't have or don't have the opportunities. He was going to be at the mercy of the UFC to actually follow through with that, and he wouldn't have been any kind of meaningful partner in the development over there in Africa. Right. So that's what he was, that's where he's at in UFC. Now, also, he gets to fight the best in the world, okay? He gets to fight the best in the world and be a part of the UFC, and he also gets to potentially build a UFC legacy that is XYZ, okay? So that's what he's got there. PFL, okay, he's given a multi-million-dollar signing bonus right for signing. And by the way, this deal was signed like 2 weeks ago, okay? Like, this is not new, okay? It's not, this didn't like just happen. This has been, and they've been planning on how to announce it and all of that stuff, getting all their ducks in a line. So he gets a multi-million-dollar signing bonus, multiple millions of dollars instantly, okay? He's going to be, I'm not sure if they've shared the exact numbers on this. I know what they are, but let's just say, actually, I'll just tell it like this. He's going to make $20 million between, he's going to make about $20 million between his two fights. It's a 2-fight deal. And the signing bonus. Oh, also UFC, it's a huge multi-fight deal. Like he's locked into UFC forever, right? He's locked in with them forever. He can definitely never box. PFL, it's a 2-fight deal. He's got 2 fights plus the signing bonus, and it's going to be $20 million-ish, okay? So that's way more money. That money is guaranteed, okay? Guaranteed. The guaranteed money at UFC is like, let's say between 2 fights, is probably like 11 million or something like that, right? Because consider he gets let's just on the high side gets 10 for the John Jones fight, loses, fights again, gets 1. That's 11. Simple math, right? So he's basically doubled the guaranteed money in his 2 fights. Now, could he made almost as much if he beats John Jones and then they get some other big fight? Yeah, he could have made almost as much. But it's the risk is fighting John Jones. So if we're just talking about purely money, there is no comparison between these 2 deals, okay? Guaranteed money is what matters in the contract unless you have incentives that can drastically, overshadow the money guaranteed in the other contract. With the UFC, that did not exist. It's not like there was any way that for him to hit 40 in 2 fights. It wasn't there. So there's that. And on the what am I talking about? PFL Africa stuff. He has a seat on the advisory board for developing, fighter advocacy or whatever. That's like across MMA. I don't really understand how PFL is going to have an advisory board that's going to impact anything having to do with UFC. I don't think they are. That sounds kind of like window dressing. But Francis also is going to be the chairman of the chair. By the way, the chairman is the top of the CEO answers to the chairman. Okay. So he's going to be, in most corporate structures. So he is the chairman of PFL Africa. Okay. So he is genuinely a partner in this organization now. Right. Now, here's something that I need to say very clearly. Right. So in my previous video where I said he effed up the bag, that everything that I said in that video, okay, everything that I said in that video is still accurate. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. Okay. Because, let me retract that. I had no idea he was going to get a deal this big, but nonetheless, the big thing that was the big driver was the Tyson Fury fight, which was going to be an absolutely astronomical payday. And by doing what he did and trying to go it on his own, it looks like he did a pretty good job with PFL, but doing a good job with PFL is very different than organizing a boxing match when you have no contacts in the boxing community. And I have now verified that basically everything that I said was correct. That's why everything fell apart on boxing. So he did a great job with the MMA stuff and the boxing got completely derailed. Well, now his team is back on. The guys who were helping manage before, Markel, those guys, Markel is now back in an advisory role and he is helping structure the boxing stuff. And guess what? Some pretty key indicators that's back on the table. And I'll tell you exactly what that is in a second. So Francis killed it on the MMA side. On the boxing side, dropped the ball only because he tried to do this on his own. He did a good enough job now that we can kind of say, all right, good job. You negotiated an incredible deal. Now, did PFL make a good deal here? I guess that information is TBD. The other thing too is about who is he going to fight. Now that is a huge thing that is enormous information, right? And we're going to talk about that too in a second, because it's like, all right, who's he going to fight? And I saw the Weasel talking about this dude who got knocked out by Yuri Prohaska that's in PFL and is pretty good. Has 15 knockouts out of 16 wins. And it's like, all right, I am just going to say this. They're thinking way bigger than that, dude. They're thinking way bigger than that. And the hint for where their brain is going, okay, because I can't talk about it. I can't talk about this publicly. Think outside the PFL. Maybe even think outside the sport of mixed martial arts, okay? Start thinking about that. Who could you get to come in if the money's right to fight in PFL where it's going to sell an absolutely ludicrous number of pay-per-views, right? Start thinking about that. That's where their head's at. Not who's in the PFL that he can fight. Not to say that they won't end up doing, a fight with someone in the PFL, but who they're targeting and much bigger. So there's that. Now, on the boxing side, so like we've said before, they had the reason why I was so hard on him when it came to that video that I did about him effing up, or I guess I'm fucking the bag up, right? Is had to do with the Tyson Fury fight, which was on the table. Obviously, they're in the Wembley Stadium. Hey, you want to see me fight this big monster? Yeah, you guys want to see us fight? Like, obviously that fight was on the table. And then he left his management. And then all of a sudden, Tyson Fury's like, I would rather fight literally anyone on earth except for Francis. And that was because he didn't have his team in place. Now he does. Okay. And that has been the case for long enough that it matters. And so Francis is not fighting until the mid 2024 in PFL. Now, from a business perspective with PFL, I have no idea what that means. I don't know if they need to go raise like more money. Or I don't really know why they negotiated that way, but I know on the Francis side, it's because he's going to box first. He is boxing before he fights in PFL. Now, considering that it looked a second ago like there were no irons in the fire in boxing, that's not true anymore. And here is what I can say. I can't say anything too detailed about this. Here's what I can say. What are the 2 exclusive interviews that Francis is doing today? Okay. So Francis is doing, and believe me, I asked for it. Okay. Trust me, I asked for it. As soon as I found out his deal, maybe 10, 12 days ago, I was like, can I please be the guy? No. Thanks, Ariel, for being so much bigger than me. But anyway, so you got Ariel on the MMA side. Okay. So that's notable for, it's Ariel, dude. He has the biggest MMA interview show. More like, congratulations, Ariel. Huge get. You deserve it. Right? What's the other exclusive interview that he's doing? Where is it? Where's that interview airing? Why would this be important? Oh, it's on DAZN. So his other interview's on DAZN. Weird. Well, I mean, why would DAZN be so interested in doing an exclusive interview with Francis? You know? Like, why would DAZN be so interested in doing an exclusive interview with Francis, given that he's just a PFL fighter now? Okay. Well, DAZN specializes in, what is it again? Boxing, right? All the biggest boxing matches are on DAZN, right? And so Francis has stated clearly that he is not fighting in PFL until 2024, and he's boxing first. And guess what else? Now, so everything in this business, if you're outside the UFC, comes down to optics, right? I mean, not everything, but a huge component comes down to optics, okay? How does this look like it's going? What's the hype around this guy? How big of a deal is he? 2 weeks ago, when it looked like Francis had like fumbled himself into a ball and just axed out all of his options, it's like, oh, who's going to box this guy? Okay. Well, guess what? Now he just signed the biggest deal in heavyweight MMA history. And it's like, damn. And they're all, he negotiated himself. It's like, yeah, he negotiated himself. It's like, wow. So his stock just went whoop. Okay. And like I said, he signed this deal 2 weeks ago. This is not new information to insiders. Okay. And so him doing an exclusive interview on DAZN, as much as no one can say anything publicly about about anything that's related to boxing yet, what is that a key indicator of? That he's not going to get a big boxing match? You know what I mean? Is that what that looks like? Now, Tyson Fury just walked from the Ruiz fight. Interesting, notable. Basically, it seems like these boxing matches get announced and then they just kind of like disappear, even though like they have a date that they're fighting and stuff. It's like, okay, so are they really fighting? And let me just actually say this as like a side note. That's like not good for the sport in general, right? It's like if you announce a fight between two guys and you say it's on this date, once you say a date, and then if you come out later and you're like, yeah, this guy was asking for too much money. All right, well, like people have a lot of stuff going on. So like if you hear, oh, this guy's fighting this guy on this date, and then it turns out that the fight wasn't even ever made, well, guess what? Next time someone announces a boxing match between this guy and this guy on this date, and then the reason that it gets axed, is because of, like whatever, because of like, they never even had a deal. Then when you actually announce a real fight that's signed on a certain date, people aren't listening. They don't mark it down on their calendar, right? Like they literally are not even, they're not paying attention because you've killed your credibility. So like, I mean, I realize these guys make a fortune, when you're at this level, like Tyson Fury guys, all those, but like you shouldn't be announcing fights that you have a specific date unless it's on paper, right? So that's what that is. Anyway, but yeah, so Francis is in the, oh God, what's the division? Like, super fight division. So again, keep that in mind when you're thinking about who he's going to fight in PFL, because they are not thinking about him being the PFL world champion. They're talking about super fights. Think more boxing than you're thinking UFC. UFC has their structure because it's this world that's all encompassed. They've got it locked down. And so people all move up inside that infrastructure. Okay. The Logan Paul, Jake Paul, boxing, right? Tyson Fury and these guys. Yeah, you have belts and stuff, whatever, but it's not as structured like the UFC. This, and even PFL has a structure to their normal stuff. This is not that. This is not what they're doing with Francis. This is the super fight division. They are essentially branding this like these big boxing matches, except in mixed martial arts. Okay. It's basically outside of the normal hierarchy of mixed martial arts. They're super fights. Okay. So again, think about it like that when you're thinking about who he's going to fight. Because all of the really, really great MMA talent is obviously already signed and in UFC. So think outside the box. Who would you want to see him fight? What's something that would sell out of this universe? You know, like someone from a different sport, potentially, you know, like someone from a different sport, a parallel sport that's extraordinary at that sport, you know, things like that. So, yeah. And now I think the most important thing to talk about here going forward is like, what does this do to the combat sports world? Like what is the impact of this going to be? Right. And that is definitely TBD, because between Nate Diaz and Francis Ngannou, this is basically, like worst case scenario might be a little bit strong. That's TBD. Let's just say this. Nate Diaz is a 50% owner of this fight, right? Like his company and Jake's company are co-promoting. They're splitting the money 50-50. Okay. Nate is going to make so much fucking money on this fight, it's hard to even wrap your brain around. That's just a fact. That's what's going to happen. Okay. That fight is going to sell astronomically well. It's definitely sold out. But, oh, by the way, anybody, so I got eight ringside seats for Diaz versus Jake. Okay. If you've made it this far, this is how I'm going to do it, dude. I'm going to bury this in my videos late so that people earn it. So I bought 8 tickets for, 8 ringside seats. Those sold in less than a day. I had a lot more demand, and so I got another set of 8 tickets. One of my Navy SEAL buddies is coming, probably another one of my Navy SEAL buddies, and then one person has bought them, and I hadn't even announced them on the table. They're front row of the lower section right next to where we are. They're actually, in all honesty, better seats than the floor seats. I've talked about this on the channel a million times. You know, when you're on the floor, they're fantastic seats. Don't get me wrong. But like if they're on like the other side, you can't. Bottom line is, in these seats, you are literally in the absolute front where there's no one in front of you, not one person except for like the floor seat. You know, there's like 10 rows of floor seats, but you're elevated above them and you're in the front row. They're incredible seats. They're better than the floor seats. So I have probably 4 of those left. Okay. This is the first time I'm announcing them on the channel. They're $1,500 each. It's going to be absolutely incredible. If you want a dream scenario, we're going to stay at Fighter Hotel. We're all going to, we're going to know where Fighter Hotel is going to be. We're going to stay at Fighter Hotel. All the teams are going to be there. We'll party with them the night before, the night after. Everybody parties at the bar at Fighter Hotel. So Jake, Logan Paul, their whole crews, Nate Diaz's entire crew, Chandler's going. I guarantee Connor's going to go. Bet your life Connor's going to go. So they'll all be there. It's going to be every single superstar that you're interested in will be at Fighter Hotel with us and our crew, and we'll all hang out Friday night. We'll all hang out Saturday night. We're going to go to the fights. So if you want to be one of these people, hit me up, realjesseonfire@gmail. It'll be the night of your life if you're interested. But they're going to go fast now that I've said it online. So hit me up, realjesseonfire@gmail. All right. So let's say that Nate and Jake, just say that's a foregone conclusion. Those are going to sell out, right? That's going to be incredible. Nate's going to make $1 million, many, many, many more than $1 million. Like probably, who knows? A lot. And now consider that Francis just signed a $20 million guaranteed contract that doesn't even include his boxing. So if he successfully gets a boxing match, which he almost certainly will between now and 2024, and let's say he makes 20 on the low side, right? 20 on the low side. Well, what does that mean? That means that Francis took an $11 million guaranteed offer from the UFC. Could have been more if he kept winning. And he said no. And he went outside the UFC and he probably made 5 times as much and also got to become a key chairman in developing the country that he came from in mixed martial arts and combat sports. Now, does that mean that all of this stuff is going to play out? Well, no. PFL, who knows? They might just be like, look, man, we ran out of money. You know, like you have no idea if this is going to play out. But as of this moment, the potential for all of those things to play out just became astronomically higher. He got $20 million guaranteed. And he also, I mean, listen, dude, he could announce a boxing match real soon. I'm just saying that could happen. I wouldn't be able to talk about it if it was there, but it could happen. And if both guys do that, the impact on the UFC will be astronomical. Now, I will say this, that sunset clause thing, that shit's over. The UFC, it was like, okay, let's be more fair to the fighters. It blew up in their face. Francis left, Nate left, and they're like, fuck that. And now they changed the contracts again. Everything gets settled through arbitration. They like the sunset clause is like no more. There's all these ways to extend them that are out that where the people with the sunset clauses, you know, like people will probably still have certain grandfathered sunset clauses. Any of the new contracts, that shit's gone. So that this shit won't happen again. You know, I can understand the UFC's position on that too. 100% I can. Absolutely 100% I can. Because, you know, the flip side of this conversation, and I'm not saying either side is right. This is just business. Business is fucking war, dude. That's what it is. But on the UFC side, if you're just thinking about, you know, who would Francis be without the UFC? Okay. Who would Nate Diaz be without the UFC? Okay. The UFC's machine is what builds them into stars. I can totally understand them being like, oh, and then they get to go out and make all this money and then fuck us with our stable of fighters. It's bullshit. There's certainly an argument for that. But then the flip side of that is, oh, well, just because you build us up, you get to lock us up forever and then not allow us to do any of the things that we could do after. I mean, look at our potential. If I wasn't locked into this contract, I could go make $50 million, but I'm going to get locked in here. I'm going to make $8 million. How is that right? You know, so like the conversation, that's why you can't even get into a conversation about right and wrong. You take what you can get. You use leverage when you have it. They're not your fucking friends. And that means UFC, the fighters are not your fucking friends. Okay. You could be friendly with them. And as soon as their career's over, you can be as friendly as you want. And you could be friends with them. But when it comes to the business, they're not your fucking friends. The UFC is not your fucking friends. They're just not, dude. You know? Now, you can use goodwill with them in order to negotiate a better deal, but bottom line, that's still kind of a leverage type position. You know, it's like, all right, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to always do what you say, but when it comes time for my contract, I expect you to take care of me. That's still negotiation. It's just a different style of negotiation. They're not your fucking friends. They're not your friends. Now, I will say this. Once you have signed the deal that locks you in forever, there is absolutely no reason to be anything but these guys are my friends. Because having a good working relationship with them is always good for everybody. And so, like, if you sign an 8-fight deal and you're 32 years old and it's the deal that you wanted, why would you not do what Colby Covington's doing, which is going out? Dana White's the greatest boss on earth. Do you guys really believe that he didn't get pay-per-view points on the Masvidal fight now? Does anybody believe that? Does anybody honestly believe that? Okay. I don't have any inside information, but no, I don't believe that. Okay. And I'll tell you why. Why is Colby not anxious to fight? Why is he so unanxious to fight? He fights Masvidal and suddenly he's like, I'll fight whenever, man. You know, if you made $8, $9, $10 million on a fight, would you be super anxious? No, of course. Now he's chilling. And he's constantly talking. What was he saying when he was in a contract dispute with the UFC? These guys are fucking me. And now he's like, Dana White, hey, don't ever mess with the boss. Dana White's the greatest boss in the history of the world. It's like, because he's got his forever deal, right? There's no reason to be combative. He's grateful. There's no reason to do anything except be nice. Because now he's just looking for favorable treatment when it comes to matchups and timelines, etc. So, anyway, I've been talking long enough. Congratulations, Francis. Congratulations, PFL. We'll see how this thing plays out for everybody. And congratulations to the African fighters who are now much more likely to get an opportunity to get into this sport. And I'll say this, man. These guys, you start building real infrastructure in Africa, you just watch. You know what? If you don't take anything else from this video, I might even make this my preview at the front because I want to make sure everyone hears this. If nothing else comes out of this video aside, I mean, look, like, again, I'm going to talk, like, I'm definitely going to make this the beginning of the video. So I will say, we have already in this video talked about the details of Francis's contract, what he was up against in the UFC in terms of, like, here's exactly what he got and here's exactly what he was offered with the UFC. Here are the benefits, whether or not he's going to box. Here's the opponent that he's probably going, this is who he's targeting in PFL, and think way bigger than what we've been talking about. But the most impactful thing that I will leave with you guys as it relates to the future of this sport is this. If they are successful in developing infrastructure in Africa where fighters are given the ability to genuinely develop their skills and see a straight line to success globally in this sport, in that continent, watch what happens in 15 years. Watch what happens in 15 years. And I'll tell you exactly why. There is a reason why all the greatest boxers come from inner cities, okay? There's a reason for that. If you go into an impoverished area where people have no options, there's no line of sight to go to college, go to law school, and then become a partner like this guy's dad. That doesn't exist. You give them something they can fight for, where they can see it. If I train every day and I become one of the best, I could become a multimillionaire, and they can visualize that from when they're a child, and they focus all of their energy on that. That is where the greatest of all time people come from. And Africa is an incredibly impoverished area with a bunch of very, very, very athletic people who are used to working hard all day long. Now, take what you've been doing there. You've been working in a sand mine since you were 10. Now you're 14. How about you take all that energy and you focus it on becoming the greatest fighter in the world? Train 10 hours a day, every day. Watch the level of talent that comes out of Africa. I am telling you, you will be looking at a clean sweep. 15, 20 years, there will be nothing but African champions. Bet that. That's what I got.